Good afternoon. Today I'm talking to Jack Lench. Good afternoon, Jack. Would you like to introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit more about you and your books.
Hello, I'm not a new writer. I've been writing for so many years, but I've decided to start publishing what I have. I'm Jack. It's at the moment sort of a hobby to me. It has been for the last X number of years, but now I'm looking to move into the publishing world and promote my books.
Did you always want to write?
Um, I don't. I worked in the Middle East in my youth, and I used to write home letters. And my father used to say, "You're so descriptive. You should write books." And that's where the the, uh, the idea first come from. But that was back in the '80s when I was abroad, and um, and so I've always thought, well, should I try? I'm totally dyslexic, and so I always thought English was not something that I was very good at. But I like to think that maybe what I've learned now is that you don't have to be good at English to be able to write. I don't see myself as a writer. I see myself more as a storyteller because um, my imagination, I suppose, is what makes a good storyteller. It's not something that um, I thought, yes, I want to write a book. Yes, I want to write a book all through my life. You get tied up with all sorts of everyday living and earning a living and all that sort of stuff. It's just sometimes 10 years ago, I had the chance to sit down and start tapping into a laptop that um, I started to put page after page together, and my partner at the time said, "This is really good. This is really good. This is," and that's why I got into it. So now, the answer to your question is, I didn't set out to be a writer or storyteller.
And what made you finally take the plunge and go for it, especially this
Um,
year or last year?
Last year we were living in Italy at the time. We looking at various problems, Brexit and one thing and another. And I think because I had a transport business, European courier, and I'm thinking this is going to get difficult to me as it has. So we thought, well, we've got the books. I've got eight completed manuscripts, and we've got uh, another two or three that are in the process of being written. Um, we'd had um, publishers given offering us contracts to publish, but we'd never gone down that route, mainly because we never had the time with my other business and everything else to um, put in the marketing that was required and the effort was. So although we had two publishing contracts for two of my novels, we didn't pursue that because of, say, everyday life at the time, earning a living, running a business. Um, with the business I had and the problems, we thought we should maybe put something else in place. And my partner is publishes herself, and so she's gave up her job to start her own business up to promote and publish the novels I've got. So that was the inspiration, really. A bit of time, a bit of wondering what on earth's going on, and not being able to, drive across Europe with the big van anymore easily.
And what made you choose the genre that you write in?
Um, the first book I wrote was about my personal experience when we moved out to Italy in 2009. We bought a house, but we then had an earthquake in L'Aquila in Abruzzo where we were. 24. We were 24 miles from the epicenter, and the first floor of the house ended up on the ground floor. And so, utter disaster. How did we feel? I started to. I said to Wendy, my partner, we should write this down, the experiences we were going through. And she said, "Oh, you do it, you do it." And so I started to write it, and that's what's gave me the impetus to do the first book. When I'd finished the first book about the life-changing experience we'd had living with an earthquake and having our house completely destroyed, I then enjoyed the process of writing so much. I thought, well, I'll do another book. And I'd always had for a long, long time a story, a bit historical fiction, which Illicit Deception is sort of thriller historical fiction, where I would sort of change historical facts a little bit and tweak them and make a story to the present. And that's what I did. So because I enjoyed writing Olives and Earthquakes, the process, and I had time on my hands, we didn't have a house to renovate anymore. And we were in a caravan wondering what we were going to do with our lives. I started writing Illicit Deception. Since then, this was about 2010, 2011. Since then, I've carried on with that writing as we've changed and moved on.
And what sort of history are you interested in, especially?
I've always been interested in history all my life. I'm fascinated by history, and so, but particularly recent history, Second World War, and stories from that era, possibly slightly earlier, First World War period, and how things have changed so quickly if you go back 100 years to what life was like. So it's always interested me, and yeah, it's yeah, I love historical books as well. I always have done, and I've always been a huge reader all my life. And the genre that I really enjoy is the people like Robert Harris, how he has gone back and written, and those sort of books are my favourites.
Awesome. And do you still get to read a lot now?
I do, on and off. Just lately, sort of lockdown time, I seem to have read less, and I'm not sure why. From what I do, I've been more busy than ever during lockdown, which is probably why I haven't been able to pick up books as much as I have. And then we launched Illicit Deception, my first novel, last summer. So that has taken a lot of, as we decided to go down the self-publishing route and get it onto Amazon and self-publish. And that was time-consuming, that the whole process of getting it accepted by the gods of Amazon for the formatting and all these sort of things has done taken a lot of time. We had a death in the family in the back end of last year as well, so and other things have been going on in our lives. Really, it's been quite a busy period, so I've not been reading as much as I should.
And what's your writing day look like?
Sorry?
What's your writing day look like?
Oh, there's no set. Yeah, I spend being in transport. I'm a man with a big white van, and if I'm overnighting, last week in Berwick-on-Tweed, I take my laptop and spend 2 or 3 hours writing the book. I could have a day off, and I sit tapping away at my computer. I don't have a set day. My work life. I work for myself. I have done for nearly all my life. So that's not a regular pattern, and neither is my writing. I don't write, oh, well, I'm going to write 3,000 a day. I will lie in bed and I'll think of, oh, yes, I want to move the story down this road, this path, that path, and then I just get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and write something down.
Fair enough. And you're a plotter or a pantser?
Oh, what?
Plotter or a pantser? Do you plot your books, or do you just go with the flow and see where it takes
Oh,
you?
definitely. Yeah. Go with the flow. Go with the flow. And I've the book we've just launched in the last few days, my second book of a trilogy, Running Flush. It's just gone live within the last few days. That one particularly, I was halfway through the book and I thought, I'm missing a character in this book. I'm missing a character. I need a character, the guy, which turned out to be the main character's mother. So I go back to the start of the book and introduce the mother into the whole round of story. So I'll no planning at all, no planning at all. I don't have files and notes. And if I want to do some research, I'll get to a point when something's in my mind where I will just research it then and then move it on. So yes, definitely not a plotter, no plan, plotter. Yeah, go with the flow.
What's the most interesting thing you found out doing research for your books?
Cool. I don't know really. I mean, I can't really say nothing springs to mind that I've found out that I didn't know before. So no, I don't really have a. I found out sort of historical facts. I found out certain things with other books that I didn't know and were fascinating. And I've gone to read the subject, to completely go off and one of my books, the honoured one, which is not of the trilogy it'll be launched probably this year sometime. That is based around the outbreak of the Second World War, and I found out Churchill's main friend, really assistant, was a man called Dudley Pound, and he turned out to be such an interesting character. I spent 2 books reading about him, but he was an unknown character to me, unknown man, unknown name. He was called Churchill's anchor. He died of cancer in the middle of the Second World War. He took over from Churchill when Churchill became Prime Minister. He took over all of the Admiralty, which was Churchill's job before he got Prime Minister, and he had an American wife who went to school with Roosevelt's wife, and then you find out these connections are so. Churchill had an American wife. Roosevelt and Dudley Pound's wives were in the same class at school together. Dudley Pound was English, but he had an American wife. And then you think, and you read in that Roosevelt was very pro going to war at the time, but he couldn't get it through Congress because the American public didn't want to be involved in a European war. And you're thinking, well, what was going on here? You find out things like Americans got warning of 12 hours of the attack on Pearl Harbor, and so half their fleet put to sea. Then the attack came. Now, who told them? Was it the American? Was the wives involved? Has it's all those sort of things that when I started to look into that, I got into doing studying it myself.
Sounds really interesting. And the weird links, it's amazing. I had no idea.
Yeah, I only found that out when I was just looking well, into something completely different through the thread of the story. So I incorporated that in the story to sort of ask questions of the reader, what was going on behind the scenes. I mean, the fact that Roosevelt was pro joining the war on the Allies side in the in the late 30s when we went to war with Germany, but they couldn't get it through Congress. That was a well-known fact. But the background to it is fascinating.
Yeah, it sounds it. I love asking that question because generally I learn something new as well.
Yeah, yeah. It is. It's one of the pleasures of writing a book is the fact that you open your mind to other things and open your mind to well, you say you find things along the way that you'd never thought you would.
How do you think of character names for your books?
Character names. Yeah, my characters, I think, are all. A lot of my characters are made up of people who I've met along the way, and not necessarily I build my characters on the people, but some of the traits they have, like as well as the names. I think names of characters are very so important. A character can't have a silly name or a name inappropriate. If you've got a strong name, then it makes the character. The name can actually form people's opinion of what that person's like. In my first book, Illicit Deception, one of the main characters was a man called Hanson Mulhenny. Well, I worked with a man called Hanson Mulhenny. Now, he was a big guy. He has sort of ginger hair. He had a very deep, gruff voice, big hands, very authoritative, and very, commanded everybody's respect when he went into the. Now, this guy was working in the Middle East at the same time as me, but the name really encapsulated what he was like, and so I've just used his name. And then other people, it becomes, you've got to get a name I think that suits the character and what they do. Yeah, it's a funny process, but a very important one. I think names, you can get a character wrong by giving them the wrong name.
Yeah. And do you find it more difficult to think of character names or book titles?
Book titles, character names, no, they come easy over the years. Book titles, yes, they either come or they don't. It took me ages to get my first book title, Illicit Deception. The second book title, The Running Flush, came to me in a moment, and I've stuck with it because the whole story is based on a man winning a hotel, a derelict hotel, in a game of poker. And that was The Honored One, which is a book. Also, the name come to me easily. But others I've struggled with, and there's one or two that I've got that not published yet, but will be soon. But I don't know if I'm 100% with the title. Again, like the names of characters, titles can be so important.
I mean, that's what sells it as well, mostly, isn't it?
Yeah.
The cover.
The cover, yeah, the cover. But the name, yeah, you can get it wrong and put people off buying your name, your book. So, I mean, my third book is called 6 Miles with a Pink Geranium. And that's such a bizarre name but again, being a van courier, somebody did that to me. I had to go and pick up a pot with the keys in the pink geranium. Take the pot with you because we want that. And so you've got to go about 6 miles with this pink geranium. And I thought, what a lovely book title. And so, yeah, but I mean, Illicit Deception, we went through hundreds of men. No, that's wrong. That's wrong. That's wrong.
It sounds like it sounds good. I'm intrigued by it, so I think you've nailed it.
The first book was the idea I'd had for 20 years. It's based around the last king of France, Louis Philippe, had 10 children, 9 children with his wife, and the first child he had 17 with a cook from the palace, illegitimate son called Leopold. Now, Louis Philippe, the cook, and the illegitimate son were banished to Milan in Italy. Leopold, the son, became, probably because he got money from the king of Louis Philippe, he was well educated and became quite a important character in Milan at the time, and he became a wealthy merchant and did extremely well for himself. This is the illegitimate son, Leopold. But what I've twisted in is the fact that I found documents in the book that he actually secretly married the cook. So Leopold then would be the true heir to the title, today's modern title of, the inheritance of the French throne. That's what I changed history, because there isn't such documents, but I used that and brought Leopold's ancestors to current day, and that's what the book is based upon, and how it would affect because the people, the Bourbon family, who currently claim that they are the descendants of the French throne, have made quite a lot of ground. That's what I've changed, and it's in the whole story.
If you were to spend a day with an author, who would you choose?
Living or dead.
Up to you.
The first book really that inspired me, I'm from Suffolk, and the first book that inspired me was Down and Out in Paris and London by George Orwell. George Orwell lived in Southwold, he was brought up there. The river in Ipswich is the Orwell, that's where he got the name from. So that is, Eric Blair, George Orwell would be my first choice. He basically got me. I started to read all his books, and I have done, and he was a master.
Yeah, completely agree. And what about living?
Living, I don't know. So I like Robert Harris's books. I like. I'm mixed, really, but yeah, Robert Harris probably, because I try and focus on his books. I would I met one or two authors and interesting people along the way doing what I do in the courier business. So it's great to hear their stories, so how they got published, where they got published from. It's great.
If you made friends with lots of authors?
I can't say I have. No, I had one recently. I had last year a guy called Andrew Nichol, who has written 4 or 5 books, published one, and one was a bestseller. And he's from Dundee in Scotland, and he had to move his moving house to Italy. Now he had 4 dogs, and the only way he could get the 4 dogs to Italy without an extremely expensive, because these dogs, they wouldn't fly, they couldn't, for whatever reason, they couldn't fly them. And I said, well, you can come with me in my transport, and we took all his furniture and all his stuff, and he sat in the van with me for 4 days as we go across Europe and down to southern Italy with the dogs. Fascinating bloke, and I enjoyed every moment of the time with him because it was. So that's my only real contact with anybody else who has done what I did. To be honest, this guy who's a best-selling author through a publishing house was more interested in my avenue of self-publishing, and he was more interested in what I was trying to do at the time because I just self-published my first book because he wanted to go down the same route. But other than that, no, I say what I do, I don't come into contact with. I'm not really in literary groups or anything like that. I'm a man in the van most of the time.
And do you get much feedback from your readers?
Yes. Well, friends and family contacts have read the books before we published them. And gave me they always give you feedback. I other than that, I keep an eye on what things going. But now I tend to not really listen to much other people. Just make my own way. Always have done all my life.
And what's your biggest dream as an author?
Biggest dream as an author? I would like to, I suppose, make a bit of money out of it. I want it to replace what I did, my other business. So if I could make a bit of a living, it would be a fantastic. The whole thing of having a book published, holding the book as a physical thing in my hand was such a mountain to climb. For somebody who left school with no O-levels, totally dyslexic, that is to me is a dream come true itself. Sorry, that was a dream itself, and if I have any achievements, it was actually getting to something published. It's been, I've been very lucky because my partner, extremely good in English, taught English as a foreign language for many years in Italy. So together, I think we have a good skill set. It's my imagination, but she checks all the spelling. She does all the punctuation that I'm, and does all my continuity and things like that. And then she's the one who's got the books to. I would have never on my own managed to get through the Amazon process of getting things passed by them. For the formatting, getting the cover the right size, pages, there's all this sort of stuff that is quite a complicated, and the number of times we had, computer says no, it's been rejected for this, and you don't see why. And I would have never got it out there if it wasn't for Wendy's input into the whole business. So the two of us, she decided to give up her job end of last year so she could devote more time to the books. We both believe in them as a product that we've got, and the number of reviews we've had from people who bought the first one is encouraging. And we have, like I say, 8 full manuscripts ready to go. There's 3 more in the pipeline. So I just want to get the numbers up and to be a point where I can sit back a bit and up the van up.
I just completely forgot what I was going to ask you then. Okay. Do you see your books as being on TV or films?
Well, who knows? I doubt it. I mean, you've got to be lucky or know somebody, haven't you? That if I get lucky, yes. You look at all the screenwriters and people like that, and they don't have my background. They all have literary, studied English at Cambridge, or they've worked for the BBC, or they've got some contact with some famous celebrity name, actor, TV producer, all that sort of. Well, I don't know anything like that. You know, I'm just an average bloke who tries to act. Unless I get extremely lucky, which I doubt, if I can get enough money to park the van up, that will be my goal in life. I'm in my early 60s, so I'm at an age of life where I don't have to worry too much about anything, because my kids are all your age or more, and so they're off my hands. Life gets quite. I can sort of sit back and not do too much, but I've always been somebody who's likes to be busy. At the moment, the books are fulfilling that need.
What's your most embarrassing story?
Most embarrassing story. I think, I don't know. I've probably done a few things in my time that I think, oh God, why did I do that? I mean, I'm the years where they were building the Millennium Dome. I was doing truck driving for Eddie Stobbart, and the Blackwall Tunnel is in London. There's two tunnels. There's a northbound and a southbound tunnel, and I came down with a load of things through the southbound tunnel to the Millennium Dome, unloaded it. It was a builder site at the time, so it would probably been the late 90s. I put an empty lorry or empty containers back on the truck, and then turned around, came back through the northbound tunnel, and it's a different height. So I get the mouth of the Blackwall Tunnel, which is one of the busiest roads in London, and have to then stop because all the lights flash and the barrier comes down, and then I've got hundreds of cars behind me. And the tunnel control has to come out, gets everybody to reverse, gets me to reverse out to a slip lane to avoid it, and you get all the people. What on earth, can't you read? The signs are saying the height of the lorry. And because you go, I came through one way. The old tunnel is a foot lower than the more modern tunnel. It used to be just a two-way tunnel, but when they made the second tunnel, they made one way north and one way south. The northbound tunnel is lower than the southbound tunnel, and then you get, and it must have disrupted because it took me over an hour to reverse an articulated lorry back up the road to get out of the way, because the traffic had just built up behind me. So possibly that.
Yeah, I think that would count.
Embarrassing. Yeah.
If you were to invite 4 famous people to a dinner party, who would you invite?
Live or dead?
Do you?
Well, 4 famous. From Suffolk, I always was a fan of Ipswich Town, and we had a fantastic manager for 14 years in my youth when I saw them at their best. So he became the manager of England. Bobby Robson has got to be up there, one of my all-time heroes. I met him twice as a boy, really, and he's up there. I'm very. I loved his books and what he did with his life. There's a writer called Eric Newby, whose most famous book, I think, is Short Walk Round the Hindu Kush. He was a fascinating man who did all sorts of stuff and really was the first travel writer, other than people who used to all sort of saying as it was in the style that is now quite common. Palin does his travel writing is how Newby was the first one. Before Newby, they were all like, well, if you go, the railway station is located, so it's all like travel guides rather than travel books. And so Eric Newby, I've always, there's 2. That's caught me on the hop a bit. I mean, Robson, Newby. I love characters in some respects. Another person who I met briefly once in another was Robin Cook, the politician, and he seemed such a nice, yeah, a very intelligent man. So yeah, I think he could tell a good story. Um, and certainly Eric Newby, I should think, could tell a good story. Maybe somebody else. I say I've always been a football fan, so like Paul Gascoigne, he could surely tell a story. Yeah, yeah, that would probably be my four.
That would be a very entertaining meal, I think.
Yeah, it would. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like fun in a way.
I mean, there's certain people that I definitely wouldn't invite. I mean, there's certain um, that you think people are self-obsessed and things like that, which a lot of the celebrity type people are. They just they can only talk about themselves, and that would no. So I would think, although I met Robson, I've never met the other three. I should imagine they would be interesting people.
Definitely. What do you like to do when you're not writing? And do you have any hobbies?
Hobbies? No, not really. Other than writing's a hobby. I like doing things. When we have the house, when we're in the house in Italy, we have a house in Italy still. Not the same house that fell down. We have another one, but I can, we've got an olive grove, so I can go and pick olives. And I can go and do things like that. I've always got to be busy. I'm not somebody like. I have an interest in old cars. I've always liked old classic cars, and so there's certain things that I can sit and talk to people about. There's certain things like that. But I wouldn't say I've got particularly hobbies. I mean, in that respect, I like researching historical things. I like, I'm not. I would say I'm not a big television watcher, but lately I have become one. I think the older you get, the more your energy winds down. Before, in my 30s and 40s, I didn't have the concentration to sit and watch TV. And so that's why I go and read a book or do something. But lately, I think getting old, you start to wind down a bit. So I do.
What's your TV of choice?
Sorry?
What's your TV of choice?
My what?
What do you watch?
Oh, dramas, stuff like Poldark and things like that. I like. The modern crop TV crop series things. Happy Valley was one that I enjoyed, and what's the one? Line of Duty, all that sort of stuff. Really, I'm not one for watching soap. I can never watch soaps. I don't like particularly watching sport, although I love football and I follow it. I don't like watching it on TV. I just, I prefer it's like music. I wouldn't, I'd rather be at a concert than sit and watch a concert on TV. So I tend not to watch things like that. I'm not into quiz shows. I'm not into anything like that. I find them just tedious. So, yeah. But, I'm a traveller. I've always been a traveller. My job is travelling. And I love going places. I think that's probably my biggest hobby with my partner. When we can, we'll just go off for the weekend somewhere. And being somebody who works all over the country, all over Europe, I have done in the last 10 years, I will say, I found a lovely place in Germany called Baden, and let's go and have a 3-week break, and that's what we do. So I think that's my biggest hobby, getting away to all sorts of places, either in this country or in Europe.
What's coming next for you?
Next, the second book is we've got a plan to launch 3 books this year. And then I want to try and finish the books that I've got, although I've got an idea to start another one, which I do. I can get into one, leave it for 6 months, then get back to it. And I was just working on another idea I've got for somebody who completely loses their memory in an accident and then tries a search like a detective story, trying to find out who he was. And I'm trying to, and that's my next book, which haven't even started on. But I've got 3 others that are in the process of 2 chapters written, halfway through, and 80% done. So they need to be finished this year. I want to get back to our house in Italy, and we've got a plan to build a glamping site. We feel we've got 6 acres of land, we've got an almond grove, an acre of cherry trees, and it would suit glamping, but we would go and we'd have to get the permissions and from the local community, like planning permission and that sort of thing. And I want to try and get that up and running, because we've got an idea of doing a glamping stroke writers retreat in the Abruzzo Mountains in Italy. The man who's now become a friend, who is my band partner, who's and we think we can have another sort of business going there with the glamping and the writers' retreats, which Wendy, my partner's keen to sort of organise with all what she's learned in the processing of getting books to market. We think there might be an interest in people coming out for a week, staying in, it's a stunning place, beautiful food, good weather, and doing that. So that's probably our next plan that we're working on. It's been held up with COVID, like everything else. We're in the UK at the moment because we can't get back out, because I can't transit France until they ease their restrictions. And so we've been about caught out with a lot of things with just lately, like everybody.
Yeah. Well, I don't have any more questions, unless there's anything else I haven't asked you that you want to tell us.
No, that's everything. I think I don't think anything else. It's not has been such as a painful as process as I would imagine it might have been. This.
I told you I'd look after you. Do you just want to sign off by telling people where they can find out more about you and your books?
Jack Lench is. We have a website. They're available on Amazon at the moment, Goodreads, and everything else. I say there's 2 now of a 3-book trilogy that's been posted. You can get them there, and you can go on our website and we can send them to you that way. And that's what we're doing. They're Kindle form. They're paperbacks, and the first book, Illicit Deception, we're in the process of getting a guy to do an audio book, which we think, from all the research we've done, audio books are a big market, a growing market. And so we've put some money into getting this guy from Devon. The book is based in Devon, in a hotel in Devon. And we actually found this bloke in Devon with a real great Devon accent, and he's putting it together so we'll soon, hopefully in the spring, have the first audio book available as well. to which will go available. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for joining me. It's been a pleasure.
It is. Thanks very much. Thanks very much.